Ginuwine, one of the most prominent R&B idols of the 90s and 2000s, was known for his chart-topping hits and a persona that was admired by women and envied by men. However, during the peak of his career, he encountered numerous personal tragedies that nearly ended his career and left him contemplating his existence. In this episode of the Triumphant Arise series, we delve into the life and career of Ginuwine, his collaborations with notable artists like Timbaland, Missy Elliott, and Aaliyah, his personal losses, and his resilience in overcoming adversity. If there are other artists you'd like to see featured in the Triumphant Arise series, please leave your suggestions in the comments below. Born Elgin Baylor Lumpkin on October 15, 1970, in Washington, D.C., Ginuwine was named after NBA legend Elgin Baylor, who also hailed from D.C. He grew up listening to a diverse range of music genres, including R&B, hip-hop, jazz, and gospel. Recognizing his musical talents, he modeled himself after his two biggest inspirations, Michael Jackson and Prince. He once said, "I admired how both of them gave their all in their performances. So, when I got the chance to do it, that's how I approached singing and performing. It had to be 100% or nothing." The family relocated to Forestville, Maryland, and by the age of 12, he began performing at parties and bars with local hip-hop groups. He also became a Michael Jackson impersonator and at one point was a break dancer, known in the area as Scrappy, the greatest dancer alive. His father loved to film his performances and brag about his talents to anyone who would watch. Although his family supported his musical pursuits, his mother reminded him that nothing is guaranteed and to always have a backup plan. After graduating from Forestville High School in 1988, he attended Prince George's Community College, where he received an associate's degree in paralegal studies, as law was another field he was interested in. He also participated in various talent shows around this time, affecting his craft at performing. He said it was tough going to school and trying to break into the music business, but he was determined to make it happen. One night, R&B superstar Devant Swing of Jodeci was performing nearby with MC Hammer and Boyz II Men. Rather than trying to catch him backstage, Elgin snuck into the hotel where they were staying and found Devant in a ballroom surrounded by girls. Now, the super confident Elgin, who had the image and talent for days, had no problem getting attention from adoring women and envious men wherever he went. In fact, many people assumed he must be conceited until they got to know him and saw his bubbly and lively personality. However, once in the presence of Devant, he completely froze. Seeing his star potential, Devant walked over to him and asked, "Can you sing? You look like you do something." So they went over to the piano and Devant started playing his group Jodeci's hit song Stay. When Elgin started singing, the girls in the room started screaming. That's when Devant said, "Oh yeah, you're going to be my new artist. I'm starting up a new label called Swing Mob, and it's comprised of new artists and groups from across the nation. You're going to be my first male solo artist." While Elgin was ecstatic, this was just the beginning of his journey. This implied that he would need to relocate to New York, leaving behind his job, his family, and his child, as he was already a father. However, after discussing with his family, he decided to take a leap of faith and make the move. Once in New York, he met Timbaland and Missy, along with a host of other talents who would form the Basement Crew, a sort of boot camp collective that Devon set up in a two-story house in Rochester, New York. Here, the new artists would write, produce, and record music in the studios at that house. This was being funded by Uptown Records, to whom Devon and JY were signed, as the label wanted 2 more albums from Jodeci. The cash advance, along with money from touring, covered most of the costs of all recording. While settling in, Elgin went through various stage names, trying to find a name that truly represented him and his personality. Frosty was one of the names, but he didn't know what made him come up with that. Infrared was the next one, and he was trying to make sense of it. Then came the Tornado thing, which was more about what he does to the stage. But that didn't work out either. He always wanted a 3-syllable name and he always wanted to hear the gin. So he said, what best represents who I am as a person, as a man? So his name is Elgin. So they just took Gin, and then he was like, wow, first we started with Ginuwine, and I was like, nah, man, we got to do something. And then he came up with the idea of spelling it differently than saying genuine, and he was like, there it is. They were in the studio 24/7, so it was all hands on deck with the creation process. Now going by Ginuwine, he built the closest bonds with Missy, Timbaland, and Static Major. Together, they helped hone each other's skills, and with Devon overseeing the production and spreading a wealth of knowledge over a 5-year period, they had recorded a ton of masterpieces, including what would later be Ginuwine's breakout hit, Pony. Yet every time Devon would shop around his artists from the basement crew, the offers mainly came in for just Ginuwine, Missy, and Tim, and not the other 13 or so artists. But Devon was adamant that either you signed everybody or nobody, so the offers got passed up. Meanwhile, money was tight, and the different artists were fending for themselves once Uptown Records decided to stop sending money after the success of Josiah's final albums. Even the studio's owner, Dave Shoemaker, said that Devon had eventually fallen behind on all payments. The artists had little to no food and were sleeping on couches. Ginuwine admitted that he had worked several odd jobs during this time, like Foot Locker, KFC, and even doing a bit of landscaping for Dave Shoemaker. He and rapper Magu would both be out there doing yard work, and Dave said that he and his wife had a flower bed full of flowers from their wedding, and that Ginuwine had accidentally mowed them over. But money and part-time jobs aside, things became increasingly tense when Devon came. When one of the artists independently secured a deal without him, Devon felt a sense of betrayal. In response, he decided to summon everyone back to the studio for what could be described as a family meeting. However, things took a violent turn following a disagreement with his artist over a contract issue. Devon convened an emergency meeting, and the situation reportedly escalated into physical aggression. Devon entered the studio where everyone was gathered and began to physically reprimand everyone, including Ginuwine, Timbaland, and Missy Elliott. He was indiscriminately striking people, even bringing his pit bulls into the mix. Upon entering the room, he started throwing chairs, one of which narrowly missed hitting Missy and me in the head. His bodyguards went around and slapped all the guys, daring them to retaliate. Despite the unwarranted aggression, none of us fought back. The situation was chaotic, with people being pushed around and smacked. It was clear to all of us that this was the end of the line. Missy Elliott was the first to leave, with Timbaland following shortly after. However, out of loyalty, Ginuwine decided to stay a bit longer. By this time, he had made cameo appearances in Devon's music videos and served as eye candy in some of the other artists' music videos, but he never had the opportunity to fully shine on his own. Missy, who was rapidly gaining popularity on her own, encouraged Ginuwine to take the leap. Looking back on his time with Devon, Ginuwine expressed no regrets, stating that Devon was and still is a genius. He likened the experience to being part of a cult, as they were isolated and focused solely on honing their craft. Despite the negative aspects, Ginuwine expressed appreciation for the experience. He eventually parted ways with the Basement and, over a single weekend, secured a record deal with Sony's 550 imprint after they heard the music he created with the Basement, particularly the song Pony, which he credits as the sole reason they signed him. Immediately upon signing, Pony was officially released as his debut single. It peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 100 and number 1 on the R&B singles chart, going platinum in 4 countries. The song became a classic bump and grind anthem and solidified Ginuwine not only as a new artist but also as a bona fide sex symbol. When it came time to perform live, the female fans went wild, throwing their underwear on stage at every show. Recalling an incident in Dallas, Ginuwine shared that during one of his early performances, he jumped into the crowd and was immediately swarmed by a sea of screaming fans. The energy was electric, the air thick with anticipation. As he surfed through the crowd, hands reached out to touch him, voices rose in a cacophony of cheers and screams. He could feel the pulse of the music vibrating through the bodies around him, the rhythm matching the pounding of his own heart. Back on stage, he took a moment to catch his breath, his eyes scanning the sea of faces before him. Each one was a testament to the power of music, the shared experience that transcended age, race, and background. He smiled, a genuine expression of gratitude and disbelief. This was what he had dreamed of, worked for, and now it was his reality. The rest of the show was a blur of lights, music, and adrenaline. Every note he sang, every move he made, was met with roars of approval from the crowd. When the final song ended, he stood on the stage, sweaty and exhausted, but more alive than he had ever felt. The applause was deafening, the cheers echoing in his ears long after he had left the stage. That night in Dallas was just the beginning. Each show brought new cities, new crowds, and new experiences. But no matter where he went, one thing remained the same: the love and support of his fans. It was their energy that fueled his performances, their passion that drove him to give his all at every show, and for that, he would always be grateful. The album went double platinum, featuring hits like Tell Me Do You Wanna, I'll Do Anything, I'm Sorry, and the ballad Only When You're Lonely, which has sadly become my personal anthem in this game of love. Another standout track on the album was his rendition of Prince's When Doves Cry, which earned him recognition from Prince himself. Ginuwine's ultimate aspiration was to emulate icons like Prince and Michael Jackson. When he attended one of Prince's concerts in Minnesota years later, Prince approached him from behind and complimented him on his cover, saying that while he generally dislikes covers of his songs, Ginuwine did a reasonably good job. Overwhelmed with joy at receiving praise from one of his idols, he expressed his gratitude. But when he turned back, Prince had vanished. What an unforgettable experience for a superstar like Ginuwine. Despite his fame, Ginuwine remained humble and loyal to his swing mark comrades. He, Tim, and Missy had grown incredibly close and shared dreams of reaching the pinnacle of success. They made a pact that whoever got signed first would ensure the others were involved in the project too. They, along with other swing mob members like Magu, all members of Playa, and Aaliyah, formed the Super Friends crew. They all contributed to each other's projects, whether it was singing, songwriting, or producing. It was a collaborative effort, reminiscent of the good old days, but now with all the perks and the joy of seeing their creations come to life. Ginuwine also contributed vocals to the remix of Aaliyah's hit One in a Million, where Timbaland used a beat similar to Pony. This remix was featured on the soundtrack for the 1997 film Sprung, and Ginuwine played Aaliyah's love interest in the music video. Always ready to support his friends, Ginuwine made appearances in their music videos, even when he wasn't singing, like in Missy Elliott's Hit 'Em with Dahi and Nicole Ray's Make It Hot, to name a few. He also discovered new talent when he met future R&B singer Tank and recruited him as a backup singer for his tours. He brought Tank along with him on the 1997 Budweiser Fest with Aaliyah and other artists like Mary J. Blige, Drew Hill, and Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. In a review of the entire set list, the Dallas Morning News stated that out of all the performers, Ginuwine was the star of the show. They praised him as one of the most valuable new singers in hip-hop and lauded him as a master showman. While he was a team player, when it was time to shine, Ginuwine certainly did. The Super Friends also contributed significantly to the soundtrack for the film Dr. Dolittle in 1998. For Ginuwine's part, he collaborated with Timbaland and Static to produce Same OG. The music video featured Playa, Timbaland, and Ginuwine's son. The single became a fan favorite, not just among his female audience, but according to Ginuwine, the song introduced him to a new male fan base that had previously dismissed him as a ladies' man. He faced a lot of envy, but the overall message of the song was that regardless of the money, status, or opinions of others, he remained the same old Ginuwine. This theme shaped his second album, 100% Ginuwine. More determined than ever the second time around, he made his dramatic acting debut in the CBS action series Martial Law. He performed his new single What's So Different, but it was his next single So Anxious that really kicked off this new era, becoming Ginuwine's second top 20 hit, and reaching number 2 on the R&B charts. Once again, women were drawn to Ginuwine in droves, ready to strip down at his shows. The album itself peaked at number 2 on the album chart and went double platinum, eliminating any chance of a sophomore slump. It would go on to win Best Male R&B Soul Album at the 2000 Soul Train Awards. Ginuwine was here to stay. He would release another hit called None of Your Friends' Business, and this time paid tribute to Michael Jackson with the cover of his song She's Out of My Life. Ginuwine said this album was his favorite era. One thing people didn't know is that he recorded the song Miss You for this album but decided against it at the last minute. However, Aaliyah heard his version, loved it, and asked if she could record it herself. Years later, it would go on to become her posthumous anthem. Aaliyah did record a duet with Ginuwine for this album titled Final Warning. Now, even though Ginuwine was on top of the world, appearing with Tyrese, RL, and Case for the much-needed brothers anthem The Best Man I Can Be from the movie The Best Man, and even had some fragrances lined up for release in shopping malls, one named G-Spot for the ladies and another named 100% Ginuwine for the men. He was still aware of the mortality around him. He had hung out with Tupac a number of times before his demise, and the Super Friends had been at the party in the same vicinity where Biggie was killed. Ginuwine said that he and Missy actually heard the gunshots but hadn't thought anything of it until they got back to their hotel and heard the news. So he had become more aware of just how people were dropping like flies and kept it in the back of his mind that tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. But nothing could prepare him for the tragedy that he would face when his father James, who was in his 72nd and so proud of his son's accomplishments, would end his own life by shooting himself in the head. Apparently, he had called Ginuwine just before he did it. As a father, he was trying to hold up a strong front for the family, but deep inside, he was struggling. This left the family in shock as they knew James had been depressed before but couldn't fathom the thought of him leaving his loved ones and his legacy behind in such a manner. Ginuwine would then turn to music and work as a form of therapy. He poured his heart and soul into his music, using it as a platform to express his grief and pain. His performances became more passionate, his lyrics more poignant. The loss of his father was a harsh reminder of the fragility of life, and it made him appreciate his success and the people around him even more. Despite the tragedy, Ginuwine continued to make music and perform, honoring his father's memory through his success. He used his platform to raise awareness about mental health, urging his fans to seek help if they were struggling. His experiences made him a stronger person and a more compassionate artist. In the years that followed, Ginuwine continued to release hit songs and albums, solidifying his place in the music industry. His music resonated with people all over the world, and his fan base continued to grow. He remained humble and grateful for his success, never forgetting where he came from and the people who helped him along the way. Through all the ups and downs, Ginuwine stayed true to himself and his music. He faced adversity with courage and determination, proving that no matter what life throws at you, you can overcome it if you stay true to who you are and believe in yourself. His story is a testament to the power of resilience, perseverance, and the healing power of music. It's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, we can find strength and keep moving forward. And that's the legacy Ginuwine continues to build with every song he sings and every stage he graces. His journey is far from over, and his music continues to inspire and touch the hearts of people around the world.